Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Have a great day.
Hi, everybody. My name's Larry. I'm an alcoholic. I see why they put you up here in the front. You look here, turn around, all of a sudden see all you people, man. It reminds me of in the 70s, I used to do a little fighting, and I was going to fight in this. I fought in this tournament in Richmond, California, and so I went down there, and I was in the locker room changing, and then they called us out, and I come down, and it's in Richmond, and I'm fighting a homeboy from there, and everybody's booing, boo, boo, and I climbed into the ring, and the place is all lit up. I could see everybody out there. And the other guy came, and then all of a sudden, the other guy came, he got in the ring, and all of a sudden, all the lights went dead. And then the lights came up just on the ring. And I was standing in my corner, I looked across at this other guy at the other corner, and I thought to myself, what the hell did I get myself into? Right? And that's just about how I feel right now. And I'm glad to see so many empty seats. Especially over here in the front, and the interpreter or the sign language guy, he didn't show up. Last time I spoke like this at a meeting, not wasn't the last time, but I spoke at a meeting when they had a sign person, and it was somewhere up in Hollywood, and the lady could you slow it down a little bit? And I was like, I get nervous, man. I start talking really fast. Like Matt, he was nervous. He was talking really fast. So you'll see when if I get nervous, I'll start talking. Then you'll know, well, this guy's nervous. But I'll tell you, let me get into this. My sobriety date is February 4th, 1985. And, yeah, pretty. My AA story really starts is when I had 5 years. And because I came through another program, another 12-step program, and back then we used to say we were clean and sober, right? And so what happened was that I was 5 years clean and sober in another fellowship, and I hit a bottom. And basically what had happened was that my wife had left me. She left me, and. And when I said, how could you do this? And she says, well, how about you in the first 10 years of our marriage? How about that? And I looked at her, and I stood there accused and guilty. And I thought to myself, why didn't I make that amends? And we'll get into that. And I was at this hospital. I was at a Friday night meeting in Mount Diablo Hospital in Concord, California. That's where I got sober. And I went to this meeting, another 12-step meeting, and I went there, and you know how you always hear, never fails. Every time I go to a meeting, I always leave feeling better than when I walked in. I'm feeling terrible. I walk in the meeting, I leave, and I just feel so much better. Well, I had gotten to the point where I was feeling okay, and then when I get to the meeting, when I left, I was feeling worse. So I left this hospital. I left this meeting, and I'm walking through this hospital, and I left the auditorium, and then I'm walking through, and I'm just kind of wandering really. And I walked down, and they had this other meeting, an AA meeting, getting off of. It was ending, and these people were out in the hallway. How we do outside, talking and stuff. And I walked up to this guy that I met when I first started going to meetings. And matter of fact, it was in that hospital where I met this guy. They used to have a recovery unit, and this first meeting I went to, it was a Friday night meeting, and so I went to that Friday. Well, let me finish this first story before I get into the second story. Right. So I walk up to this. I walk up to Don, and I says, "Hey Don, how's it going?" He looked at me and he goes, "Hey Jose, how you doing?" Right. I said, my name is Larry Jose. When I first started going to meetings, they wanted to know, introduce yourself by your first name. And I thought, Larry just don't sound tough. Right? So I used my last name, right? Jose, right? Everybody's scared of Jose. Shit. And you know what? When I went to this, went to this meeting. I went to my first meeting, man. I was dressed like Shaft, man. I had this black turtleneck sweater, man. I had this brown leather coat, nice leather coat, man, with these zippers where you put I had fur-lined gloves in these two zippers. I had brown slacks. I was color coordinated. I was matching all the way down, man. I had my little pinky ring. I had my wedding ring. I had my jewelry. I had my jewelry on, right? I had my ID bracelet, man. Gold filled. And I had my pretend gold watch on, man. Shit, I went in that meeting, man, and I was looking hard, man. Because you know what? When I was younger, I used to practice hard looks in the mirror, right? I'm sitting in that meeting going, that's right. How about you dudes in the back? God forbid you go, hey, man, what you looking at, dude? And I buckle like a belt, man. It's like I'm like the actor in the book, man. I'm always acting like, like I'm really tough, man. James Cagney, man, a little short dude, gangster dude, man. I'm a gangster without a gang, right? Mobster without a mob, man. I want you to really think, man, oh shit, don't look at him. I've been afraid all my life, but we'll get into that too, hopefully, if I got enough time. So Don says, how you doing, Jose? I looked at this dude, man, and I struck my pose, right? I put one foot in front of the other. I kind of leaned back, put my hand in my pocket, and I look at him, man. I go, that's cool. And he goes, and how's that lovely wife of yours doing? Man, I grabbed, oh, fuck that fucking bitch. Sorry, Irene. Sorry, Lawrence. And he couldn't believe it, man, because me and Irene, we were like the poster couple. Right? I mean, when I showed up in the program, we were already married 12 years, and 5 years had passed, and now here we are, 5 years. We're married like 17 years, and he could, whoa, and then I'm telling him all the stuff that happened. Really fat. Oh, she did this, she did that. She moved out. She moved in with Marcia. Man, oh shit, I got to divorce her now, and she's gonna get half the house, half my retirement. She don't deserve shit, man. And Don, he's looking at me. He can't believe it, right? And he goes, and this guy, Don, let me tell you about this dude. He's an older guy. He's white. He's really tall. He's from Oklahoma, and he got a big old belt buckle, right? Yeah, big old belt buckle, right? And I'm from Frisco, man, down there in Hunters Point, Double Rock neighborhood, man, and always completely different, right? And he looks at me, man, and he goes, selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble. And I looked up at this tall dude, and I went, that's it. That's it, man. I'm self-centered, man. All I can think about is myself. This is how it got for me, man. And I didn't even know this. I had lapsed into a state of depression. I didn't even know it. I used to think back then in the 80s, people were showing up and they were talking about, doctor, just, depression. And then they get around to talk about the medication. I'd think to myself, that's it. They just want medication. Why don't you just write just do a third step prayer, write an inventory. You'll be all right, right? And you know what? God has a way of giving me a little bit of something that I'm making fun of. Always, man. And this is what it's like for me, man. It's like I'm laying in bed, and I can go to sleep all right, right? I can go to sleep all right. I go to sleep about 10:30. I wake up about 12:30, and it's like my mind is like a vulture sitting on the headboard, just looming, just sitting there. As soon as I wake up, I look up, and the vulture says, I'm glad you're awake, Larry. We need to talk. And then it starts telling me, man, and my mind starts hitting me like, well, she left, man. I mean, yeah, but, I'm telling my mind, yeah, but it was really my fault. Yeah, but still, man, and then it starts asking, so what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to have to divorce her. Yeah, but it's all your fault. And I said, well, I'm trying to make it right. Well, you got to, and it says, and it's like, well, you're going to sell the house, and it goes on and on and on. On and on and on. And then finally, man, it's like I'm answering these questions. My mind is hitting me these questions. I'm answering them, and then pretty soon it'll hit me with one that I got to think a little bit, and I'm starting to think, And I go, all right, I got it, man. And I go up to tell it with my answer, and all of a sudden, here comes another question. And I pause a little bit, and then another one, and another one. Now I'm 3 questions down, and I'm thinking, and I go, shut the fuck up. And I sit there and I look, man, and there's nobody in the room but me, and it's dark. That's scary, man. And if any of you guys know about that, there is a way out. I can tell you that much, man. So, getting back to this Don Brown deal, he says selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble. And I looked at this dude, and I started launching this real thing of how all I can think about is myself. And then he goes, driven by 100 forms of fear. Now, nobody was saying this stuff at the other program that I was going to, man. All they would say is, oh, Jose, this too shall pass. You know, and after 2 months of this crap, I'm going, when's it going to pass? Right? And this dude tells me, man, and then he looks at me and he says, there is a solution. Right? And I looked at this dude and he goes, he asked me something that nobody ever, about 5 years in this other program, nobody ever asked me this question. He says, Jose, what step are you on? Right? Over in this other program, all they say is, well, how much time do you have? Right? Well, how much time do you have? You know, and you ever notice you get in an argument with somebody and then they start throwing their number around, and whoever got the biggest number wins the argument because they're the most rightest, because they know the most, because they've been here the longest? Yeah, okay. You know, I had all these offices in these other programs. You know what? I've never lost an election. Right? I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't even have to make a speech, man. I don't even have to get into a debate or anything. I don't maybe it's, it's just everybody loves me, I guess, man. They go, hey, something needs to be done. We need a coffee maker. Well, I nominate Jose. I second that. All in favor? Every hand goes up, man. GSR? Boom, every hand goes up. Secretary? Every hand goes up. We need somebody to run this dance committee, right? All the hands go up. How about Jose? Right? So, 5 years of that. And this guy says, what step are you on? And so I looked up him and I said, well, I did an inventory and I shared it with Manuel, and that's it. And he hit me with this here. No big white dude going to sit up there telling me, what the hell you think? You know, I'm from 3rd Street, shit. Right? I don't know about any of you guys, man, but I don't like Right. Like, you know something I don't. So then he goes up. Then he looks at me and he told me that I mistook relief for recovery. Right? And he said that I was blocked off. And I looked at him and he says, from the sunlight of the Spirit. I never heard no words like that in this other program. Right? And I'm looking at this dude, right? And then he says, and then he starts just telling me that if I was to do 4 through 9, I would get unblocked and my life would get better. And he told me, he says, I can't guarantee that wife of yours is going to come back. He says, but I can't guarantee you this. No matter how it turns out, you'll be okay with it. Right? And so I just tell you, last February, me and Irene celebrated 45 years of marriage. So... And I did make amends to her. It took a while. I had about 9 years, and we're getting ready to go to some engagement somewhere, some program thing, big thing they were having, Unity Day or something up in another town. And I was all dressed up, real sharp, right? So I'm in the garage, and I went to go get something, and I looked in this drawer, and I saw my wedding ring. This one here I got on now, right? And I took it off in a battle with her one time, and I took the ring off and went to give it to her. No, I don't want it back. I never wear this ring the rest of my life. Fuck. And I went and I put it in that drawer, and I didn't wear it for 4 years. And then when I saw that ring, I went out there, and she was washing dishes. I said, and she turned around. She said, yeah. And I says, I need you to know that I'd been selfish, self-centered. I've been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, and inconsiderate, and for that I'm truly sorry. I took this ring off 4 years ago, and with your permission, I'd like to start wearing it again. And she's, man, she was washing dishes, grabbed me, hugged me. Oh, man, of course you can start wearing your ring again, right? worn it ever since, right? And so, I don't know, the program works. So I started with this dude, right? And so we started walking, we're talking, and we're in the hospital, right? And the announcement goes, visiting hours over in 5 minutes, right? So we start walking towards the door, and I'm walking with him, right? And I'm talking to him, and we get up to his Cadillac, right? And he gets at one end, and I get up in the other, right? He gets in, and he hits the thing, I get in, and boom, I'm sitting next to him, right? And I'm just sitting in his car. I ain't letting this dude go. You know how it is, man, when you run into somebody, man, and you got something that's been bothering you. It's like a rash. I got a rash, man. I think it's cancer, man. It's, oh, shit, right? And then some guy goes, oh, no, it's just a rash. You just need some calamine lotion. It'll be all right. I mean, you don't want to let that guy go. Hey, well, tell me more about the rash, right? And so, and you know, I don't want to let this dude go, right? And so he's sitting in his car, and he looks at me like, you know, and I'm like looking at him like, you ain't going nowhere without me, dude. You know, I want you to keep talking to me. Keep telling me about, you know. And he says, where you parked at? And so I started looking around. And this hospital is kind of like Disneyland. You know, you park in Disneyland, they got acres around surrounding this thing, a parking lot, man. I mean, and I'm way on the other side. So he got to drive, and he gets up there, and I'm not getting out of his car. Right? And then I says, well, what are you doing now? He says, well, I'm going to go home, right? And I says, hey, man, are you hungry? He says, no, not really. I said, I cooked up a bunch of chicken, man. Fried chicken, you know, for, you know, me and Lawrence, right? And I says, why don't you come to my house? And this guy, you know, he knew, man. I guess he knew. 5 years. See, when Don, we went in two directions, right? Like I told you, he was in this unit, and the whole thing was 28 days. And when he got out, even though he kept coming back to this meeting from another program, he had gotten into the book, and he had gotten a guy to sponsor him that was a book guy, right? And so now me, as I told you, man, I got into service, right? I got into activity. I didn't get into action. I got into activity. I didn't get into action. I got into motion. That's what this guy said the other day, motion. Right? Motions ain't going to keep you sober through the long run. You know, motion is, that's when your body is moving, right? Come here, sit down in the meeting, you get up and you go, but you don't take no action, right? And the action is contained in the books. So he went to my house, right? And he says, and I started telling this guy some really stuff about me that I never told the other guy that I did this inventory with. I mean, I'm telling him some stuff about me. See, right now, with these guys going to the bathroom, I'm thinking, oh, I'm bombing. Right? They're leaving because I suck. Selfish and self-centered. I'm not self-centered. I'm well now. I mean, shit, there ain't a self-centered bone in my body. So, getting back to this. So he comes there and he comes in my house with his briefcase. And the briefcase, boom, he pops out his book, right? And then he starts showing me some stuff in the book, right? And he says, Jose, he says, I've known you, man, when you first started coming, right? He had a bracelet. We're sitting in the back of the room, right? I'm looking tough, and he's sitting there. He got a bracelet on. I'm new as hell, right? And so we know each other. And over the years, 5 years, we bounced. We've seen each other around and stuff, right? And so he says, old Don says, he starts opening his book, and he says, Jose, he says, I've known you, man. He says, I've even heard you speak at meetings. He says, there's no doubt in my mind you're powerless. Well, let me back up first. He says, he took me to page 60. And on page 60, it says, guy read it tonight. Our description of the alcoholic, our chapter 2, the agnostic, our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he was sought. Now, all the rest of you people, not these people in the front, but are you guys familiar with the next sentence in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous? It says, being convinced, you are now at step 3. Right? And this man started to explain to me that when this book first came out for distribution in 1939, that this book, when it got to San Diego, you start to read this book, you said, wow, this is good shit, man. I think I'm going to find a meeting. Get me a sponsor. Got news for you, man. When that book went on distribution, there's only 2 meetings. One in Akron and one in New York. So if you're in San Diego and go, oh shit, right? You say, hey man, you phone up the service in New York. Oh hey, who am I talking with? Bill Wilson. Hey Bill, I just read your book, man. I really like it, man. Where can I meet other people and go to a meeting? Oh, where you at? So I'm in San Diego. He says, well, you're in luck. Closest meeting to you is Akron, Ohio, right? Wednesday night. He said, holy shit, what am I going to do now? He says, well, why don't you read Working with Others and a Vision for You? Right? Now, and what's your address? I'll send you a letter, give you some direction. Right? So, what point I'm trying to make is there are no sponsors. Right? There's nobody, man, that's going to sit up here and say, hey, could you sponsor me? Yeah, and explain all this to you, man. It's just you and this book. Right? So people got this book in San Diego. They read this book, and here we are. Bang. Bang. Right? I don't even know how many meetings there are in this area, but look how we've just grown. Look how we've just grown, just from the power of this book. And then he jumped around and, well, let me finish that one thing about A, B, C, being convinced. He explained to me, he says, when you're convinced of A, B, and C, this book, not me, not the secretary, not the leader of the meeting, not the speaker, but this book tells you that you're on step 3. I said, oh, okay. All right. And then he let me off the hook. He says, I know you've been around a long time. I've heard you speak. I know you're powerless. I've heard your story many times. I know you believe in God. He says, so you want to do this 3rd step prayer? So man, boom, we got down on my knees right in my house, man. I did a 3rd step prayer with him. Right? Did 3rd step prayer. Then he showed me how to write an inventory. He's an old Joe and Charlie guy. He used to work on, whenever Joe and Charlie came around, he always worked on the committees and set up the hospitals and stuff. So, there's a lot of guys around here think, oh, well, Joe and Charlie, yeah, the inventory, the checklist and stuff. But you can say what you want and think about what you want. You might have failed on it too, and you might not get too far. But I'm here to tell you, man, I got 33 years, started doing it at 5. Something's working. Then he started taking me around and through this book, and he showed me, he says, okay, let me show you. He took me to the doctor's opinion. And the doctor's opinion starts off, man, he says, the reader will be interested. He says, we of Alcoholics Anonymous more than, well, that's another part. He says, but they identified themselves, said, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. And every time he said this book, he always patted the pages. This book, right? So I said, wow, all right. And he says, Jose, you can hear anything in the meetings. You hear all kinds of stuff in the meetings. He says, fake it till you make it. This guy told me, he says, if you read the first 164 pages, you don't have to fake it. You know exactly how it's done. Now, I've had some people, I've shared that at some meetings, and then some guy waits till the end. Anybody got a burning desire? Yeah, I got a burning desire. I faked it till I made it to 9 months, 2 years, and I just saved my life. And I'm thinking, yeah, blah, 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 blah. You'll hear anything in the meeting. Right? You hear anything in the meeting. Now, every time, I sponsored a lot of guys. Oh, the hell with it. I'll give you my number. I sponsored over 100 guys. I've heard at least 80 inventories, all from the stuff that this guy showed me. Right? And the attitude, man. I took the attitude these first 100 people did, man. If you ever read Working with Others, man, you know what amazes me is to what effort these people put into helping other folks. Every time a guy comes up and asks me, I need a sponsor, I always tell him, man, I said, well, that depends. Oh, do you sponsor people? Yeah. Yeah, I sponsor people. He says, well, will you sponsor me? Well, that depends. They look at me like, depends on what? It depends. And I says, are you willing to go to any lengths? Right? As soon as the guy says, yeah, I'm ready to go to any lengths. I said, okay, good. I said, I want you to remember this because I might have to tell you and remind you about this. You the one who told me you're willing to go to any lengths. But that's it. And then I always tell them, listen, man, a couple of guys over the last, because I started sponsoring successfully when I got to about 7 years. And like Matt said, when I consider successfully is when I heard another man's inventory, right? Because the 12 by 12 says that, was it 12 by 12 say something like that? Like, until you have spoken with another person or another man in complete candor and had them do the same with us, we still did not belong, right? We still did not belong. Now, either Bill either meant that when he wrote it, or what? I think he meant it. I think he meant it. What he's talking about, what Don told me, he says he's talking about the sunlight of the Spirit, right? That he writes about in A Vision for You. When he ends it, you'll surely meet some of us, right? In the sunlight or fellowship of the Spirit. That's what he calls it, the fellowship of the Spirit, right? He says there's a fellowship of the people around here, and you're a member when you say you are. But if you want to join the fellowship of the Spirit, man, it's going to take a lot of effort. And this is what I do. When that guy asks me something, I always say, let me have your phone number. Right? You can ask any guy of them 100 guys who call who. Right? I call them. They don't call me. They say, hey, should I call you for 30 days and check in? What for? I said, that's my job. I'm going to check on you. You don't have to phone me. Right? I'm going to phone you. And you can ask any one of them, man. I got their names and numbers in my book or in my phone. Right? They always look at me. And some people, I'll tell the old companies, go, oh, well, like my wife used to say, well, you baby these guys. Right? I baby these guys. That's why I got so much numbers. He says, well, you coddle these guys. You carry them along and stuff like that. And I think to myself, who called who? Did Bill call Ebby? Hey, dude, I heard you're sober, man. Could you help me? No. You guys all read Bill's story, right? His childhood friend. He got a phone call one morning from his childhood friend. He's sober, right? How about Akron, Ohio, when Bill went there and his business deal failed, and he's walking around. He could hear all these people laughing and joking in the bar, and he thinks to himself, well, maybe I can go in there, strike up an acquaintance, because he's lonely. Everybody he came there with left. Okay, you stay here, mop things up. He broke. He ain't got no money. Right? And he's like, yo, man, drinks sound good. And then he thinks to himself, maybe I could just have one, maybe two cocktails. Right? And finally he says, fear gripped him. Right? Fear gripped him, man. Fear had gripped him, man. He knew, man. He knew. And then he thought, and then one of the thoughts he had, and this is really unusual for an alcoholic, he says, what about those other alcoholics? They're not going to hear the message. Right? Now, that's unusual for an alcoholic, right? Selfish and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble. How do we get past that to, what about all these other people? Right? What about all these other people? That's a hell of a stretch for an alcoholic. Don't give a shit about you. Right? All of a sudden, come here, man, practice these principles in all his affairs, gets this book, reads it, has somebody take him to the thing, and all of a sudden, man, he thinks about you, wakes up in the morning. Thinks to himself, how am I going to get this guy to finish his 4-step? And you guys got that problem, man? Got some guy that's man, wasted, he's just, I run into these guys. Hey, homeboy, how's that inventory? Oh, it's coming. Yeah, okay. 2 weeks later, hey, homeboy, how's that inventory coming? Oh, it's coming. It's coming, Jose. It's coming. Right? And the next time I see him, how's it coming? I say, hey, wait a minute, man. Where are you exactly? Exactly, man. I want to know exactly where you're at, man. Sexual conduct? No. Fears? No. Resentments? No. And I says, well, let's talk about your resentments, man. Have you listened to people, how you were affected? No. What they did? No. Have you got any names on the paper? And I always tell those guys, hey, you know what? You're stuck. Come on over to the house. They come over to the house. I can't begin to tell you how many people wrote their inventory at my dining room table. That's why my wife says I coddle them, man. She comes out the bedroom and here's some guy sitting there writing. I thought we were going to watch TV tonight. So, let me see. So where was I at? Oh, yeah. I love this program. I really do, man. Matt talked about it brought purpose to his life. It brought purpose to me. It really did. You know what? I've hardly had any service commitments since I've gotten into sponsorship. Most of my sponsorship, I did do a H&I. I brought a meeting into. That's another good story. I'll probably tell it. It's the South Bay. What's it called? South Bay Detention Facility. Anybody been there? Any alumnus? South Bay Detention. Hey, goes. You know what? I went to the H&I meeting that they have up there at that Union Hall, right? And I'm sitting there, and Chula Vista, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this thing, man, and I'm thinking, Chula Vista, okay, this is right here. And the guy that told me to do this, and I'll get into why he told me to do this, he told me, make sure you go into a lock-up facility, right? And so I went to ask him, because I didn't know, don't say. So when the guy said, well, what's this detention facility? And he goes, it's a jail. I says, oh. He says, yeah, it's the Chula, it's a fancy name for the Chula Vista jail, really. That's what it is. South Bay Detention Facility. And it was a jail. Yeah, well, you know what? So I went through the steps with Don and a couple of years, and he used to do these book studies, man, all over the Bay Area. And imagine it, every town in the Bay Area, they have almost every town has a Lano club, or they got some place, and they get Don to come on and do his book studies. He'd do these book studies. They were 7 weeks. 7-week book study, right? 2 hours, Tuesday nights. And he'd sit there and he'd take you all the way from forward to the first edition. He'd take you from the forward to the first edition all the way up to working with others, and then he'd jump over, the Al-Anon stuff, family after, to the wives and the employers and all that, and then he'd go to a vision for you. And he'd do all this in 7 weeks. And he was booked for like a whole year at a time. And when he would go around, every time he would come back close to Contra Costa County where we lived, I would go to the meetings. And then he had a special group at his house that he used to do on Tuesdays. This dude did lots of books. Matter of fact, he told me one time, I got to quit doing these book studies because I'm getting to think that this is the meeting. This is the meeting. This dude told me one time, he says, Jose, why do you go to meetings? And I'm looking at this dude and I'm going, and I want to come up with something because I don't want to say, well, man, what's her name is pretty fine. Right? And Brenda, man, these high heels she wears and the way she paints her toenails, oh man, just mesmerizes my ass, right? And I don't want to tell him that, right? And so then this dude, man, he's like Bill, if you haven't got this yet, man, he's just like Bill Wilson, man. Bill Wilson the way he writes, if you never notice, he asks us a lot of questions. Man, you start looking at your book real close. He asks a lot of questions, right? We needed to ask ourselves but one question. Do I now believe or am I willing to believe it? And he always gives you the answer. He always gives you the answer. Right after that, you don't have to go, man, read 2 pages and all of a sudden, there's your answer. And you got to, where was it? This dude directly, he just gives you the answer. Gives you the answer, right? And that's how my sponsor does, right? So I'm standing there he could tell, man, that I want to come up with something profound and I can't. And then he says, whether you realize it or not, Jose, we go to the meetings. Is at the meetings where we practice the 12th step. He says, the new people come to the meetings looking for us and we go there looking for them, right? Because he's old school. He's on the hunt. He's on the prowl. Right? He's on the hunt. He's on the prowl, man. He knows, man, that nothing so much will ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. Right? This is our 12th suggestion. Right? This is our 12th suggestion. Because you can help when somebody else can't. Right? And so, now let's see, what should I talk about? Okay. In 1996, they had, I got 10 minutes. Okay, 1996. I haven't even got to the part where I could tell you what it was like. Oh, shit. 10 minutes. What am I going to do 10 minutes? So, in 96, I moved down here, right? Huh? I only got 10 minutes, yeah. So, in 96, I moved down here because I worked for the Navy. And they closed Alameda Naval Air Station, right? What I did, I worked on ships. So when they closed that, they offered me a position down here at 32nd Street, right? And it was in ship repair, right? What we did was we administered contracts on Navy ships, right? How to fix them, right? So I said, okay, sounded like a good, and they're going to give a promotion. I said, another promotion? Because that's one thing I started getting. Once I got clean, my first promotion I got was 6 months. When I came to the program, man, I was a facilities inspector, man. And I started off as an apprentice machinist on the ship, right? And so I wound up right? Graduated to be a facilities inspector. So I said, oh, so I used to go around with a clipboard, right? And I worked at the Oakland Navy Supply Center. So I go into this place, I go into this big ass warehouse, and there ain't a whole lot of mechanical systems to check except for the bathrooms. So I go into the bathroom and I go in there, and the guy said, how do you expect the toilet? How do you expect to inspect a toilet? He goes, well, you flush it, right? And they got this flushometer, right? And so it flushes, and then if it stops, that's sat. Bang, give a check. Satisfactory, boom, right? And if it keeps running, oh, that's unsat. We got to fix that, right? You put unsat. I said, well, what about the seat and the door? He says, don't worry about that. That's the carpenter, right? So they offered me this job down here, and they're going to give me this promotion. I used to always think to myself, only kiss asses get promotions, right? That's what's the matter. That's why I don't get no promotions, because I ain't kissing nobody's ass. Right? Remember Jose? That's right. I don't kiss nobody's ass. I found out one thing, man. Promotions are given to people because they're willing to accept more responsibility. And that's why they get extra money. So I moved down here, and I told the wife, hey, you stay back. And so they offered me this job like in July. Okay, when do I start? And they go, August 1st. Holy shit. Right, so I go home, I tell Irene, she says, well, what do you want? We talk about it a little bit. I prayed a little bit, and talked to a lot of people, my sponsor and stuff like that. We even did an inventory, pros and cons. We just did a pros and cons, what was good about it, what was bad about it, and everything said go, man. We went down there. It took 18 months to sell that house, and I was stuck down here, man, and I was just, oh, man. I fell into another, that was my second depression. First one was 5 years when the wife left. The second one, we were separated, but not through any problems or troubles, man, just the way things turned out. And I lapsed into a state of depression. Man, I felt really bad. Man, I was real bad. And so I dove into sponsorship. I'm sponsoring this one guy. I go over his house to show him how to do a 10-step, and I couldn't think for nothing, man. This depression sucked, man. The vulture came back. And I hung in it, man. That depression lasted about a year and a half. Then the house sold. I went up there. We had a gang of money. We bought a brand new truck. We moved down here, and they told us, I drove down here Sunday night. The next day they were going to we had a little place close to IB, and it was a little cottage in the back of another house, really nice and private and stuff. And so we rolled up there. Irene said, just drop me off here. I'll meet the truck, and you just go to work. So I went to work, and I came home. I came in the house. All the furniture was in place. She was cooking, man, and I could smell them pork chops, man, out when I parked the car, man. I come in, man, all of a sudden, boom, depression was gone. I spent so much time praying and praying. It's always, every time I go through something heavy, man, the one thing always goes through my head, God could and would if he was sought. So what's my job? Start seeking. So, you remember Matt told you that when I went up to the ranch. When Lawrence went to the ranch, that's my son Lawrence, his friend that he talked about. When my son went up to the ranch, it's like, even when he was little, man, he was born premature. And me and the wife, we'd go visit him, right? And he was in this incubator, right? And we'd leave this incubator like 11 o'clock at night, and we go, or 10 o'clock at night in Frisco, right? And we go get something to eat. We'd walk out, and my wife would say, oh, I miss Lawrence. And I go, let's go see him. Boom, we go up there, right? And it was the same thing, man, when he wound up in that place, man. It's like, I got to go see this guy. And I'm all the way in Chula Vista, 63 miles all the way out to the ranch, man. I went 3-4 times a week. Three times a week for sure, and then 4 in case somebody like Matt said, I'm ready to do a third step. I did the reading. I'm ready to go. I'm convinced. And then I would go up there. I'll say, okay, I'll see you on Wednesday. I'll get up there early, right? So I went up there, right, and we were sitting there. When the first time me and Irene went, I think he checked in on Thursday, and we went on a Saturday or a Sunday. Well, she worked on Saturday, so we went on Sunday. And so they had their meeting. They go, oh, would any people in the back, with a visitor said, would they like to speak? And Irene starts giving me this nudge, right? Go up there, right? And she's giving me this nudge, and I'm looking at her, and she almost knocks me off the chair. Go up there, man. I get up, I said, okay, I'll get up there and speak. I got up there, and I sat there, and it was much like here, man. I get up there, except it's all guys, right? And with like you said, all the tattoos on their heads and shit, right? And not all of them, man. I don't want you to think every one of them got SS on the side of their head, right? But I stood up there and I looked, man, I thought, shit, I only got about a couple minutes. So I hit him with, well, this is what was, towards the end, right? Oh, towards the end, you ever notice towards the end, that's when the big stories come out, well, towards the end, right? And towards the end, this is what I would do. I would go into my bedroom, and, the book talks about the real alcoholic, right? This real alcoholic, drinks liquor, and he takes high-powered sedatives. Right? I don't know about any of you guys, but I love high-powered sedatives. And I got a sponsor. Matter of fact, it'd kind of be hard to choose, man. Do I really got to choose? I'll take them both, right? And I got a sponsor that always talks about high-powered, what's it called? Stimulants. Oh, now we're talking high-powered stimulants, right? And I love high-powered stimulants, right? So I get up on these high-powered stimulants, and all of a sudden I get these ideas. Right? And I was at Ace Hardware, man. Ace Hardware is like my Toys R Us, right? Toys R Us, right? So I'm sitting there browsing. I go through looking at shit, man. I always look at something and say, how can I use this? And my mind's just wandering. How am I going to use this? And I come across a bathroom lock, right? And I said, man, I wonder if this will work on my bedroom door. Because Lawrence was little then, right? He was only 7 years old. Well, actually, when all this was going on, man, he's probably about 6, right? Or 7. And he'd get real excited. Him and his sister's a couple years older, man, 4 years older. They get excited. Oh, Dad, come look at this, right? And they barge into the room, man. I'm sitting there doing some crazy-ass shit, right? And I can't have this, right? So I put that bathroom lock, and it's okay. I locked it. Hey, Lawrence, come check this. I work for the Navy, so we always do an operational test on the equipment, right? Hey, I'm do op test. Hey, Lawrence, come here. He comes and says, I can't. It's locked. I'm thinking, satisfactory, right? It's satisfactory. So I go in there Friday, right? I go there Friday night when I go. Actually, I'm lying. I like to start a little early. How much I got now? 2 minutes. It ain't gonna take that long. So I thought to myself, man, I just have a hard time, man, making it to work on. I thought, well, maybe I should start on Thursday instead of Friday, right? And then Thursday will give me extra time, right? And that's not extra time to stop. That's extra time to use. And so I go into my bedroom. I lock the door. I go into my bedroom, and I sit on the edge of my bed, right? And I got me a nightstand. And on my nightstand, I got a little bag of high-powered sedatives, a piece of aluminum foil, rolled up dollar bill, a pack of Salem cigarettes, 2 cold beers, and a stack of some really sleazy adult magazines, right? I mean, I'm talking $12, $13 books, right? Hey, no interviews, no advertisements, right? So I would sit on the edge of my bed, right? And this brother from Richmond taught me how to do this, right? He says, you put a little bit of this high-powered sedatives on this aluminum foil, put a match underneath, put the dollar in your mouth, go, suck it. He said, and hold your breath as long as you can. And I failed to tell you, hey, look, man, I'm an alcoholic. You tell me to hold my breath, I ain't going to breathe. That's just it, right? So I looked in the mirror one time, and I noticed some smoke coming out my nostrils. I'm going, Finally, shit. Take a sip of cold beer, light up one of them Salems, turn the page, get a couple strokes, and peek out the window. And if I run into you on Monday at work and you go, oh, hey, Jose, what'd you do this weekend? You know what I'm going to tell you? I was partying. I was partying, right? Partying. I told that story one time in a meeting, man, back home, and a guy come out to me and goes, hey, Jose. I said, yeah, man. He goes, you know that? Not really a party. And I said, it wasn't. He goes, no, not really. I said, why not? He said, well, all parties got something in common. I said, like what? He said, well, like guess. Right? Like guess. And I looked at him, right? And I thought, well, the wife's there. And then when my son told me, wives and girlfriends don't count. Those are hostages. Right? I told that story another time in San Francisco, right? The sponsee asked me, hey, could you come tell your story? So I told that. I used to start off with that story, right? And then I get to the end of how it was, and I tell that story. And some people came after me and said, man, your sponsor is glorifying drinking and using. And he came up to me feeling like, hey, man, this guy says you're glorifying it. I said, really? He says, yeah. And, well, I didn't know isolation, masturbation, and pornography was glorious in San Francisco, right? I mean, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have told that story, man. So if any of you guys going to tell Brian, golly, Brian, that guy, man, he just glorifying that, Another guy came up, man, he told another sponsor I took someplace else, and he says, my guy tells him, it was Mark Mulsey, he says, yeah, he's bragging. He says, I got Larry Jose. Oh, man, look, Larry Jose, he made me use. How the hell did he do that, right? He says, well, I heard him tell his story, and right after, man, I went and got some stuff and some books and went in his room. And then so the guy came and told me, right? Like it's my damn fault, right? So this guy told me, he says, yeah, man, like I got to change my story around. My story's my story. I can't get a new one, right? I mean, So he tells me that, and I looked at the student, I says, I didn't make that guy do that. And he said, no. I said, no. I said, you know why you did that? And he says, why? I said, because he wanted to get loaded. Right? He wanted to get loaded. Ain't nothing I could say. There's nothing I could say that's going to make any of you guys stop tonight. You're going to leave and say, oh, man, that guy was fantastic. I'll never drink the rest of my life. Right? Then when you get your 10-year cake, you can say, I'd like to thank Larry because I heard him 10 years ago. Right? Ain't nothing I could say. Ain't nothing I could say, man, help you people. Right? Nothing I could say, man. The best I can do is you sitting there at the end of my talk, you might leave here thinking, it wasn't that bad. I think I'll come back. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.